Yeah, that's a great question. So I first started working in ABM in 2003, and I haven't changed the definition since then. So I think for me, it's all about treating individual accounts as markets in their own right. So if you imagine the scale of some of these accounts, the accounts you mentioned, they're enormous. They're bigger than some small countries. So it kind of makes sense to treat them as you would a market.
Yeah, right. And it's like, so like you're treating a big company like its own market. So what does that actually mean? So what does that mean? Like, it has its own strategy, it's got its own campaigns. Like, could you just expand on that a bit, please?
Yeah, of course. So, I went to university, I did marketing and business and stuff, and we learned the end-to-end marketing process. So, you start with deciding what you're trying to achieve, then you scan the landscape, then you decide how you want to segment the market, where you want to be targeting and how you position yourself. And then you plan your whole marketing campaign, whether it's 4 Ps, 7 Ps, however many Ps we're at now, and you measure how you're going. And we were used to doing that to either industries or geographies, but we weren't used to doing it into individual accounts. And so really simply, that's what account-based marketing is. It's that end-to-end process that's applied into an individual account.
Yeah. And so, for example, like if you wanted to target Coca-Cola exactly. would be the account, and that would be the market, and that would be the focus of an entire strategy. Is that right?
That's it. That's exactly right. And Coca-Cola is a fantastic example. It's huge, it's complex, got different areas of the business, supply chain, distribution, marketing and branding. So there's lots of places you could go there, depending on what your business is, to grow your business. And the first thing you've got to do is decide, well, what do we do? What do they need? Where should we focus? How do we position ourselves? How do we compete? What do we want to sell? How do we want to help them? So that sort of company, global banks, oil companies, these are huge businesses, as you rightly say.
And we're going to unpack this in a lot more detail over the next hour or so. Yeah. So, but I just want to get some of the history, because where did the concept for ABM come from?
Well, this is a funny story. I've been working with ITSMA since 2001, and I was hosting a dinner in London because we're a membership organisation, and the sponsors of the membership come together and they chat about, challenges they're facing, what's going on with their marketing function. They share tips and advice, that sort of stuff. And I was I had, I think, 25 guests at this dinner in Mayfair in London, and I had Dr. Charles Doyle from Accenture on my left, and I had a lady from Unisys on my right. And suddenly they said, you know what, we're applying marketers to individual accounts to work really closely with the account team and open up the account, cross-sell, upsell. And I thought, that's interesting. That's a new model. I've never seen that before. So in 2003, we did a survey to see, were people shifting to this kind of model? Not many people were, it literally was those two. What did it look like? How were they doing it? And from their early experiments, we sort of worked with them and put together an approach and a framework, and it's developed ever since. So they were calling it client-centric marketing at Accenture, and the Value Adding Solution Provider Program, or VASP, at Unisys. And I thought, well, I quite like client-centric marketing, but we can't nick that. So let's call it account-based marketing, because actually that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, and because when I was reading your book, and I kind of had a look around online at a lot of different resources, and I kept seeing the ITSMA, and then I saw your book, and then I read your book, and your book is fantastic. Anyone who's listening should absolutely purchase that book. It's worth 100 times the price of it. But at first, it seems like it's a sales function, but it's called account-based marketing, right? So there's an overlap between sales and marketing. And could you just expand on that? Because I know that was like a real aha moment for me.
That's a really, really good point. And going back to the definition, if you like, we also think there's 4 principles of ABM. And if you're not abiding by these principles, then what you're doing is probably not ABM. It's probably just sophisticated targeted marketing to a list of accounts. And one of those principles is you partner with sales. So that traditional, I've been in marketing for 30 years, and that I've worked in some companies where there's been quite a big gap between marketing and sales. And you get that whole thing of, marketing throwing the leads over and saying, well, why aren't sales following those up? And sales saying, what's this rubbish? Why aren't you getting me better leads? And there's always been this gap. And ABM is really about closing that gap. So you do it with sales, it's in partnership, or with account management, depending on your structure. Everything's based around client insight. So it's not, right, what have I got on the truck that I want to sell? It's what does this account need, and how might we be able to help them by combining what we have with what our partners have and all that sort of stuff. Everything's tailored and personalized to the individuals you're marketing to. And I think really importantly, it's not about MQLs or SALs or any type of lead. It is about driving revenue, but it's also about strengthening relationships and building new relationships across the account, and also positioning your brand as, the go-to, the trusted advisor, the preferred supplier in that account as well. So the collaboration with sales is absolutely key, to the point where some companies like Microsoft don't call it ABM anymore. They call it account-based engagement.
That was going to be one of my questions, because I was going to ask you, what's the difference between account-based marketing and account-based engagement? Or is it just a little update for marketing purposes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it started off as let's not call this marketing, because it isn't the traditional marketing that we do. So we want to position it differently. But actually what's happened is it's a whole orchestration around the client. So account managers typically, they will try and orchestrate the business around the client. That's part of their job. And account-based marketing is kind of supporting them in that endeavor, because it's not always straightforward. And we've seen, the classic thing, I work a lot with tech companies, is, we're so excited about our tech, and there's different silos of tech and different products, and all we want to do is shout about our tech. So I was talking to someone yesterday, I had 40 different product lines, and they were all going into the same types of companies, and they all had marketing campaigns. That's chaos for the customers. So this is really about this orchestration piece and taking the voice of the customer, the idea of what the customer actually needs, back into the organization.
And we're going to get into that in a bit more detail. I've got so many questions. This is very this is a fun interview for me. When does ABM work and when does it not work? Yeah. Who is it for? Essentially, let's start with that. Who's it for? Well,
I believe really passionately that it's for the business. So when it's worked best, it's been a strategic growth initiative. So after I did that initial sort of dinner and the initial research, I went into Fujitsu, which I'm sure people will be familiar with on the call.
Yes, definitely.
And I was taken into the UK business to try and accelerate their private sector clients, because they were very heavily public sector, sort of federal government, local government, health, that sort of thing. And as a management team of that business, we decided we would prioritize the accounts we wanted to do business with. So we'd shift from reacting to requests for proposals coming in to actually saying, who do we want to do business with? Who do we want to build our future company with? And so we did some account selection work, and I facilitated that for the management team. And then we said, okay, those accounts that are really attractive to us and we think we stand a good chance in, we're going to invest account management time, we're going to invest commercial time, legal time, HR time, and of course, marketing time. And so it was an investment decision, and the marketing investment to do ABM on the top accounts was just part of a broader investment in our strategic growth. And that, for me, is when ABM really flies. It's when it's not marketing in a cupboard, designing a campaign and sort of hoping to do something a bit different and throw leads over the wall. It's, as a business, this is the right strategy for us, and therefore this is the right marketing strategy.
Yeah, I get it. And so there are companies that already are selling to large enterprise, and there are companies that are starting to move into selling to large enterprise because of their the cycle of their business, right? And so now they're like, okay, well, we're at a point where we need the bigger contracts now, right? There are, what's the minimum size of a company before they should be starting to think about ABM? Or what's the minimum size of the marketing and sales team before they should start considering ABM?
Well, I've helped literally companies with less than 20 employees take an ABM approach, because it's less about the size of your company, but it's more about the size of your deal. So if you're likely to have, individual accounts that could bring you hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds, dollars, euros, whatever you're working in, then it's worth you investing the time to treat them as an individual market. If you're selling something, that can be bought pretty easily online and is maybe £5,000, euros, dollars, whatever, ABM doesn't really make sense, because actually a really sophisticated targeted demand gen campaign would be more efficient. Because the thing with ABM is, if you are applying a marketer to look at one account or 5 accounts or a cluster of 20 accounts or any combination of those, that's an expensive resource. So you've got to think about the return on investment. How big is your deal size? What's your client lifetime value likely to be? And is that worth putting a person on it, or a fifth of a person on it, or however you want to judge it? So I think I'd encourage people to think about that first. So
would it be then that, just to talk to your point, let's say that I want to launch an ABM program, right? And I've already got my marketing team and my sales team, and I'm not going to try and change the whole world in the first step, because sounds really cool. I'm really excited, but I've tried things before that haven't really, performed. You really just need 2 people to get started, a salesperson and a marketer. Is that what you would suggest? Or am I just getting it wrong right now? No, I mean, you're pretty much on the nail. And actually, a lot of people, they just start with a pilot. So they say, right, what's our deal size? Okay, it's in the tens of millions. We'll do a 1-to-1. We'll pilot maybe on 3 accounts. And they'll either ask, someone who's got an existing day job to take those 3 accounts on and just have a go. So it's an experiment at that stage. Or they might bring someone in to try it, or use an agency to try it, or a consultant or something. But that piloting stage is really important. And what we're seeing actually through the pandemic is that even companies that weren't doing it, were doing sort of traditional demand gen, they're trying to get their demand gen people to even think more in an ABM way, but at scale. So at a more one-to-many level, which is particularly popular in North America, but is becoming a kind of always-on engine for the accounts that matter most. So if you've got 200 accounts or 2,000 accounts, and that you want to do business with them, then you've got the technology now to be able to monitor those accounts, to target the personas in those accounts you want to work with, and that can be your demand gen team just working in a different way. So it comes back to what type of ABM or types or blend, and just giving it a go, experimenting alongside what you're doing already, I think. So what we're talking about right now with the one salesperson and the one marketer is strategic ABM, right? Is that what we're talking about right now? Is that the 1-to-1? Could you just just explain the different types of ABM just for the listeners? Because I'm across them, but I think it would be super valuable right now. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that strategic ABM. So strategic ABM is also called 1-to-1. It's where, I as a marketer work with the account director for Coca-Cola, as you just said, and we put together a plan of, what we want to achieve in Coca-Cola, what we want to sell, and how we're going to orchestrate kind of sales and marketing tactics to help us achieve that. So that is a 1-to-1. And it's very rare now that you get one marketer focused on one account. It tends to be, you handle 5 accounts or so. That's 1-to-1 or strategic ABM. But then, because that worked so well, people said, well, we want more of that, but we can't expand our marketing me talking with my team. Hey, well, that worked. I want more. Can we do that times 10? I want more of that. That's working. But by the way, your marketing, you're seen as a cost. We're not going to throw, loads of extra resource at you. So then people started scratching their heads and saying, well, how do we stretch this out and cover more accounts? So we've got Coca-Cola, but what about other consumer product groups or big brands or whatever? And that's where 1-to-few or ABM Lite came out. And what you're doing there is you're saying, okay, maybe I'll cluster together 15 consumer product groups or 15 car companies or 15 banks, or even 15 companies who have something else in common. So maybe they're at the start of their digital transformation journey, brought on by the pandemic, maybe. And because they have these things in common, I'm going to prepare a plan and some solutions of how we can help, and that kind of orchestrated sales and marketing motion
for that group of 15, but it's still really customized, really personalized. So that's one to few ABM Lite.
Yep.
And the one to many is, okay, we've been spraying and praying stuff out, but thousands of accounts across Australia, across Asia, across America, whatever.
Yep.
Actually, we're being a bit silly here. Our ideal customer profile looks like this. Maybe it's, smaller manufacturers of consumer product groups.
Yes.
And we're going to track those companies and track our buyer personas, maybe the CMO, the CEO, the CFO in those companies. And when they look like they're looking for something that we can help them with, then we'll send a personalized campaign in. But that's much more like traditional marketing. So that's one to many, or as I call it, programmatic ABM, because it is very much automated as a process.